morning all, this is Jeff Hale, Comprehensive Outdoors. Welcome. This channel is made to help you become a more comprehensive hunter, fisher, but just an outdoor person in general. And today's episode is going to be about something a little different. It's going to be about the Solo Stove. I just purchased a Solo Stove after doing quite a bit of research and going over to a friend's house and watching how it worked over several different campfires. And this is a great option because people who hunt and fish, but also mountain bike, just like to hike, who go take and use our public lands, this might be something that you want to take with you. This might be a great option to be able to put in the back of your pickup as well as have it outside in your backyard. So I wanted to get a Solo Stove for two reasons. One, I'm building a deck and I wanted to be able to have a fire option that was able to go on my deck and not hurt my deck or burn my deck, as well as be on the grass. I wanted to be portable so I could move it around. That was one reason I wanted to have it. And then I also wanted the ability to take it other places if I needed to, for example, deer camp or a fishing camp or wherever I was going to. And finally, I wanted something that had less smoke. So let's go ahead and watch the video about the Solo Stove. And if you want, you can fast forward all the way to the end of the video where I ask some questions and answer some questions and give you some pros and cons about this product. All right, everybody, Jeff Hale here from Comprehensive Outdoors. I got my new Yukon Solo Stove. I'm gonna be doing a product review of this. Here's the box it came in. We're gonna go ahead and open it up. Let's see. Okay, this is the maiden voyage of my Solo Stove. So far, so good. The Yukon I got, if you look underneath, there is a stand that the main Solo Stove sits on top of. And that stand allows you to put this right on the grass or on a deck and protect it. Now you see there's a fire in the middle of it, but it's not doing its job yet because it's got to get hot enough so that all these holes in the on the outside start to shoot flame. But that doesn't happen until this thing gets super hot. Okay, I'm getting the flame a little bit higher, and you can see there is some smoke coming off of that wood. And the reason there's smoke coming off of it is because the entire Solo Stove hasn't gotten superheated yet, and these walls right here have not gotten superheated, and it kind of acts like a catalytic converter. And eventually all these holes on the perimeter of the stove will eventually start to shoot out flame. And when that happens, it's superheated flame that will actually burn the smoke. Okay, so because I'm doing a video, I want this to superheat quickly. I'm gonna add oxygen to it using my little fire encouraging tool. Okay, this thing has definitely got a hot flame going, but we still have some wood above the holes. It's not smoking very much at all. There's a little bit of smoke, but really not very much compared to a standard campfire. Okay, people, we are starting to get flame out of some of the holes in the side. Not so much over here, but we're starting to get flame coming out of some of these holes. It's starting to heat up. I want you to go ahead and see the smoke. So we're gonna test it. That's a little bit of smoke, but we'll see once the fire starts shooting out of these holes. Okay, so we got about half of the holes, half of the jets in the top, spitting out flame. Okay, that was last night after a lot of wood, and look it, there is almost nothing but just this little fine ash. I have a couple of bigger little chunks right here, and I have one big chunk here. It's not even burned. But as far as ash goes, there is nothing compared to a normal fire that I would have in my old pit, where I would literally have to take a shovel and take a couple trips to move the ash over here and put it in the soil. All right, so we're back here at day 2 with the Solo Stove, and I wanted to show everybody, since I want to do a good review, this is the cover that I paid extra for that came with it. And it's a very thick, heavy duty cover, so that even though this thing only weighs 50 pounds, we don't have to, we can move it, but I can also leave it right here. In addition, down here, this ring I told you about, there was no marks, there was no burn marks, it wasn't even hot last night to the touch. So I want to show you how this, get this back in here, feel it, you'll hit it just right, and it'll, nope, that's not it, there it is. So anyway, if you look inside here, this cover comes with this metal device, and when it came, it was all folded up around an axis, and you unfold it into 4 pieces, kind of like a helicopter, and then you lock it into here so that when this comes over the top of it, it holds its shape. So I would definitely recommend getting the Solo Stove cover so that you don't have to move this. All right, day 2. Just getting a little fire going in the bottom of it. This thing takes about an hour to fully heat up and to get those holes in the top, those jets, having flames come out of it. So if you're gonna have guests come over and you don't want any smoke, you need to start this thing about an hour in advance and stoke it super hot. And once it gets hot, keep the wood below the level of those holes. So, one more thing about this Solo Stove. It has been raining hard for at least 45 minutes. You can see the rain coming down, and that thing is still just kicking. It's still burning, hasn't stopped at all. I went over there and you can hear the raindrops just sizzling and turning into steam. That's how hot these things get. Okay, that was 90 minutes of rain pouring down. You can see the ground is all soaking wet. All right, well, you got to see how the product works. Let me just go ahead and do a little bit of review. So some of the questions that we're gonna go over. How much does this thing cost? So the MSRP is $499. If you wanna buy the cover, it's extra. But for 499 bucks, that comes with the base ring that keeps the Solo Stove off the grass or your deck, as well as the fire ring on top that funnels the air into one location. Now this was cheaper before COVID-19 hit. I noticed that on REI and on Amazon, you could get this thing for like 450 bucks. For whatever reason, because of COVID-19, I think people are trapped at home. It's the spring, it's the summer. One of the activities people are doing is spending more time outside, having campfires. And so by the time I got into purchasing this, I couldn't find it. Amazon was sold out. REI was sold out. I had to buy it directly from Solo Stove. So I wound up paying a little bit more, plus I paid for the cover that goes over the top, which I think is worth it. What are the dimensions of the Yukon Solo Stove? Well, they make both the Solo Stove Yukon, and then they make the Solo Stove Ranger, and then they make the Solo Stove Bonfire. And both of those are less money, substantially less money, but they're also substantially smaller. The Yukon has a 30-inch outside diameter and a 26-inch side diameter from one side to the other side of the inside of the fire ring. It's 16 inches high without the base, but when you put it on the base, it's probably about 19 inches high. And they say it weighs about 46, 47 pounds. Totally portable, totally you can pick it up, totally you can move it. Is it really smokeless? So yes, it is, but not until you heated the entire stove walls up and you get a serious bed of coals, right? So you gotta really get this thing hot. Also, you need to keep your highest piece of wood below the jets. If you do that, yeah, it's probably, I would say 98% smokeless. How does it work? Well, if you go on the Solo Stove website, they say it's a natural convection inverted down gas gasifer stove. I was like, what? What does that mean? Well, when I read about it a little bit more, it's the air intake holes in the bottom of the stove channels air into the fire, but at the same time, hot air will come up with the hollow walls of the stove. So those walls on the Solo Stove are in 2 pieces, and the hot air comes up and then comes out the jets in the top, and that air is superheated. You get very little smoke because it's burning the particulate matter by that superheated air coming out of the top, and then it burns the smoke at the base and then again at the top. Is it really efficient? The Solo Stove website claims that these are very efficient stoves. That wasn't my experience if we're talking about taking a long time to burn wood. So if you're just using regular old campfire wood, what I found is it gets so hot that it just tears through the wood. But you can make it more efficient. There's two things you can do. I noticed that if I used really, really hard wood, a harder wood, it slowed the burn way down. So one way you can make it more efficient is to burn the compressed logs that you can buy. Don't go to the grocery store and buy like the Presto logs. You get like 2 of them for $8 or $10. Instead, what you want to do is go to Home Depot or go to Lowe's. I go to a little local place here called Rolling Bay, and I can buy compressed logs in bulk for like $1.20 each. And those things really do make it efficient. Once I have built the coal base up and I've used wood and I've got it hot, I throw a couple of those in there and they will last between 90 minutes and 2 hours a piece, depending on how hot your fire is. So those really help to not tear through the wood. Start with regular wood and then switch to hardwood or switch to the compressed logs. How much heat does it put out? So it puts the Yukon puts out a ton of heat, lots of heat. You'd have no problem having a fire in freezing conditions. It would keep you totally warm if you sat around it or stood around it. One reason I went with the Yukon is because some of the other reviews that I read for the Ranger and for the Solo Bonfire, some of the reviews said that that did not put out enough heat. And so people felt like you had to stand really, really close to it. This thing cooks and you can be 2, 3, 4, 5 feet away and just feel the heat coming off of it. So that's another reason I went with the Yukon. Here's a few tips for you if you do buy the Yukon, and that is start it about an hour in advance. Have lots of wood on hand, buy compressed fire logs in addition to regular wood, and keep the wood below the jets if you want a truly smokeless fire. One other tip that I learned that is not on the internet anywhere is when you unpackage your Solo Stove, wear nitrile gloves, especially because the fire ring that goes on top, I'm not sure why, but if you touch it with your bare hands before you've had a fire in it, it will leave permanent fingerprint marks on it, and you don't want your stove to have these funky fingerprint marks on it. After you've had your first fire, it's not a problem. Would I purchase this again? Absolutely, 100%. I think it's worth the money. I like the portability. I like the fact that I can put it on a deck. I can put it on my grass. It doesn't burn anything. And I could actually take it on a hunting or fishing trip with me. So I hope you appreciate this review and it helped you. And in no way am I getting paid or got free anything from Solo Stove. This is just my unbiased review. Hope this helped you. Thanks for tuning in to Comprehensive Outdoors.